It's a pleasure for me to be back home. And many of you, those of you who are nodding your heads, know why I say that. I had the distinct privilege and honor to represent the riding of Oakridges for 8 years. And of course, Oakridges-Stouffville was part of that riding. It included Oakridges-Stouffville, the town of Richmond Hill, and the northern part of Markham. And it was an interesting circumstance that brought me to the riding of Oakridges at the time, because I had been elected in the riding of York-Mackenzie, which included Newmarket, Aurora, and King Township. And that riding got split in two, and it was either going to be me up against one of my other colleagues, and that wouldn't have been very nice, because one of us would have lost. And I agreed to run in the riding of Oakridges, which was a brand new riding at that time. And here's the interesting thing, folks. I actually ended up with a higher plurality than any of my other two colleagues. And it was because of you. I had never worked with a group of people who were more dedicated and more focused and more sincere and more passionate about taking out a message to the people. And that's why I had the privilege of serving this great riding for 8 years. And then you threw me away. The story was that this riding then got split in two, and we had some decisions to make, and of course I now have the privilege of serving the riding of Newmarket, Aurora. Folks, I'm not going to speak long, because you're going to hear from your candidate, and that's who you're here to support. Let me first of all bring greetings from Tim Hudak, our leader and the next Premier of Ontario. I also bring greetings from my caucus colleagues who want to say to Farid and to you here, the organization, that we will do whatever we can to support you and to ensure that Farid is the next MP for the riding of Oakridges-Markham. Here's why we, and I particularly, look forward to having Farid as part of our caucus. I'm going to tell you how I first met Farid. Some of you recall that there was a bit of a controversy in this province over how pharmacists were being treated. The McGuinty government decided in its wisdom that they were going to change the commercial terms of how pharmacists, especially community pharmacists who are independent business people, were going to be treated. And they basically tore up their commercial contract and determined that from that point forward, the terms of how they do business was going to be very different. Recollections of not a free Ontario or a free country, but quite frankly, an insult to everything that we as Ontarians came to know. People came to this country and this province for the freedom of doing business. And they expected that free enterprise would be supported. But here we had the McGuinty government coming along and saying, Father knows best, we're going to change how you do business in this province. And I can tell you that many pharmacists, many community pharmacists were on the brink of bankruptcy. There are some who are in fact going out of business still as a result of that unilateral action by the McGuinty government. But here's the positive thing. As a result of that, our party, under the leadership of Tim Hudak, decided that we would take a stand for those people in this province who chose to invest themselves and dedicate their professional lives to pharmacy in this province. And at one of those meetings that I organized, a press conference in Newmarket, I invited pharmacists to come and share with the community what the challenges were and what this all meant to them. One of those pharmacists who came to that press conference was a guy who struck me in a very different way. He stood up and he gave his story at this press conference. I thought I'd give a pretty good press conference. But I can tell you, this guy outshone me. I can get pretty passionate when it comes to speaking. This young man tripled me. I can usually get people excited. This man moved people because he told his story with such passion. Turned out his name was Farid Wassef. And I'll never forget this. As we left that meeting, Farid said to me, we were walking to the parking lot, and he said, "Frank, I am so angry at what this government is doing to my business and the business of my colleagues. What else can I do?" And I looked at him and I said, "Farid, why don't you run to be a candidate and defeat this government?" He looked at me and he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What's involved?" I said, "Well, look, you think about it and give me a call and we'll talk about it." It was about a month later and I got a call from Farid. And he said, "Were you serious about what you said to me about running?" I said, "Of course." He said, "Well, I'd like to get together with you." I'm going to make this story short. But we had a meeting, and all I said to Farid, I said, the most important thing for you, if you want to be successful, first of all, to run for a nomination, because that's the first step, and second, to win an election, is you have to feel it in your gut. You have to have a passion for this, and you want it not just for you, but you want it for the people that you're going to serve. And he looked at me and he said, "I feel it." And you know, the rest is history. Farid took that challenge on. He would call me from time to time to get advice, and I made it very clear. I said, "Look, as an MPP, I cannot endorse you. I can give you advice, but that's all." We had a standing rule that is directed by our leader that sitting MPPs were not to get involved in nomination races. But we could provide advice, and so I did. And Farid, to his credit, took that advice and he ran with it. And he went to see people and shared with them what his passion was and why he wanted to run, and that's why you're here tonight. And I just want to say this to you. I am so proud of Farid Wassef because he is taking this challenge on that you are going to transfer to him by nominating him as your candidate. I'm so proud of him for taking on the challenge, for being willing to actually do the work that has to be done. And I want to thank him on behalf of Tim Hudak, on behalf of our caucus, and on behalf of all of you gathered here today. But I want to thank someone else equally, and that's Farid's wife and his family. Because there is no such thing as a candidate doing this all alone. Beautiful family. And you know, that's what this is all about, and I'm sure that Farid will tell you that one of the reasons he's doing this is for his family and for the many other families in the riding of Oakridges-Markham. All of us, whether it's Vic or Shan, we are doing this for our families and for the families to come. Because families in this province have been deserted by our government. They've been ignored by our government, and quite frankly, I believe they've been mistreated. I don't know how many of you have found that notwithstanding the biggest income tax hike that has ever been levied in this province against families, notwithstanding the biggest sales tax hike that anyone has ever had, notwithstanding all of the additional taxes that you're paying, that your life is any easier. In fact, what I hear from whether it's seniors or people on fixed incomes or whether it's people in business, they're having a more and more difficult time to make ends meet at the end of a month. What Tim Hudak and a PC government are committed to doing is to give relief to families and businesses so that they can once again benefit from their hard work. No one's looking for a handout. But I do believe that we all expect government to leave at least something at the end of a hard working day that we can have for ourselves and our families and build a better life. And with that, I want to just encourage you. I can tell you, I have a sense. I was there in 1994 leading up to 95. I know what that campaign was like. We won a major majority. And the reason we did was because when we went door to door as candidates, as volunteers, we had a message that resonated with people at the door. They understood that what we wanted to do for them was make their life better. That we were going to leave them more of their hard-earned money. That we were not going to be putting up with abuse of tax dollars. That we were not going to be putting up with a system of government that had basically consumed and drained all of the energy out of this great province. Dalton McGuinty has one legacy that he will want you to forget, and that is that he took the province of Ontario, that was a leader in Confederation, an economic engine of this country, and he made it into a have-not province. We are, for the first time, under the leadership of Dalton McGuinty, getting welfare payments from other provinces in this great country. That is a shameful legacy, and it's our job to ensure that people remember that. Having made that statement, we will have a positive message. You know what I so am excited about when it comes to Change Book? The name of our policy platform. It is full of positive messages for the people of this province. It talks about hope, and it gives people a reason to get out and to campaign and to elect Farid Wassef as the MPP for Oakridges-Markham.